The restaurant held its breath. At the center table, the most feared man in the city, Matteo the Wolf Valenti, couldn't stop his own son from crying. The child's grief was a raw, open wound. Every waiter, every patron looked away, all except one. Serafina, the new waitress, invisible in her black uniform, did the one thing no one else dared. She walked over. She knelt, and as the entire room prepared for violence, she began to speak. What she did next would change her life, and as the Mafia boss finally looked at her, he said the 5 words that would seal her fate. He needs a mother. Il Corvo Dorato was not merely a restaurant, it was a fortress of neutrality. Gilded in gold leaf and dark mahogany, it was the one place in the city where rival businessmen could dine without fear of bullets accompanying their branzino. The silence was expensive, the discretion absolute, and no table demanded more silence than Table 7, the permanent reservation of Matteo Valenti. Serafina Serra Rossi had been working at Il Corvo for 3 months. She was good at her job precisely because she was forgettable. She was quiet, efficient, and had a face that was pretty in a way that was easy to overlook, a blessing in a place like this. She needed this job. She needed the shadows it provided. She was, in every sense of the word, hiding in plain sight. Matteo Valenti was not a man one overlooked. He was the head of the Valenti family, a man who had inherited an empire of shadows and, through sheer, cold-blooded will, dragged it into a new era of terrifying legitimacy. He was known as the Wolf, a man of few words and decisive, permanent actions. He was also a widower. With him, as always, was his son, Leo, a small 5-year-old ghost in a perfectly pressed suit. Leo Valenti hadn't spoken a word in the 6 months since his mother, Maria, had been killed in a car bombing meant for his father. The boy was a porcelain doll of grief, clutching a small, worn wooden wolf, the only thing he had from that day. Tonight, something was different. Usually, Leo was just silent. Tonight, he was crying. It wasn't a tantrum. It was a low, keening wail that cut through the clink of silverware and the hushed conversations. It was the sound of a heart that had been shattered and left to bleed. The staff froze. The other patrons, men with $1,000 suits and scars on their knuckles, stared fixedly at their plates. Matteo, the man who commanded the city's fear, was utterly helpless. He tried to pat his son's back. "Leo, basta. Enough." His voice, usually a tool of command, was rough and useless. Leo just cried harder, his small fists clenched. "Get Mr. Valenti's car," Sarah's manager, Dimitri, hissed at another waiter, his face pale with sweat. He looked at Sarah. "Don't go near that table, do you hear me?" But Sarah wasn't listening. She wasn't looking at the Mafia boss. She was looking at the child. She recognized the specific brand of loneliness in his eyes, the kind that comes when the one person who understands you is gone forever. She knew it because she lived in it. Against Dimitri's hissed warning, against every instinct for self-preservation that had kept her alive for the last 2 years, Sarah moved. She didn't approach Matteo. She walked directly to the side of the table and knelt, putting herself at Leo's eye level. She ignored the 2 bodyguards, Luca and Nino, who tensed behind their boss, hands moving inside their jackets. The restaurant went dead silent. Matteo Valenti turned his head slowly, his grey eyes, cold as a winter sea, fixing on her. A death sentence. Sarah ignored him. She looked only at Leo. "That's a beautiful wolf," she said, her voice soft. Not a coup, but a simple statement of fact. Leo's cry hitched, startled. He clutched the wooden toy tighter. "May I see him?" Sarah asked. Leo shook his head, tears still streaming. "That's okay," Sarah said, nodding. He looks very special. It's good to hold on to special things." She reached into her own apron pocket and pulled out a simple, tarnished silver locket. She didn't open it. She just held it in her palm. "This was my mother's," she said, her voice just for him. "Sometimes I hold it so tightly, I worry it will break. But it never does." Leo's eyes fixed on the locket. His breathing was still ragged, but the wail had stopped. Sarah continued. "It's hard, isn't it? Feeling so big and sad inside that you think you might burst. Like you're a bottle with too much soda and the cap is on too tight." Leo sniffled. He looked at this strange woman, then at his father, then back at her. "You don't have to stop crying," Sarah whispered, a secret just between them. "But sometimes it helps to have a hand to hold while you do." She didn't offer her hand. She just waited, kneeling on the expensive rug, her knees aching. Slowly, so slowly, Leo's small hand unclenched. He reached out and didn't take her hand, but instead his finger touched the silver locket in her palm. He traced the engraving, a simple flower. A single, shaky breath left him. And then he was quiet. Not a happy quiet, but a settled quiet. Sarah stayed there for a long moment, just letting him be. Finally, she gave him a small, sad smile. "You're very strong, Leo Valenti." She tucked her locket away and slowly stood up, her joints popping. She smoothed her apron, her face carefully blank, and prepared to be fired, or worse. She turned. Matteo Valenti was staring at her, his expression unreadable, carved from stone. The entire restaurant was watching. I apologize for the interruption, Mr. Valenti," she murmured, her eyes on his tie. "I'll have Dimitri remove the disturbance from your bill." She tried to walk away. "Stop." His voice was like gravel. She froze. "What is your name?" "Serafina, sir. Sarah Rossi." He looked at his son, who was now quietly watching Sarah, his thumb in his mouth, the wooden wolf in his other hand. "Serafina Rossi," Matteo repeated, as if testing the weight of the name. He looked back at her, and for the first time, she saw something other than ice in his eyes. It wasn't warmth. It was a raw, desperate calculation. "My son has not been calm in 182 days, Matteo stated, his voice low. "He has not been touched by a stranger without screaming. He has not stopped crying for his mother since she was put in the ground." He paused, his gaze pinning her to the floor. "Until tonight." He didn't say anything else. He simply nodded to his bodyguards. They rose. Matteo placed a stack of $100 bills on the table, more than enough to cover the entire section, and stood. He picked up his silent son, who, for the first time, didn't fight him, his eyes still locked on Sarah as she was led away. As Sarah walked back to the kitchens, her legs shaking, she heard Matteo's voice, not at her, but to his bodyguard, Luca. "Find out everything about her, and have the car brought to my estate tomorrow, 9 a.m. She's coming with us." The next morning, Sarah was not invited to the Valenti estate. She was collected. A black, armored Cadillac, so polished it looked wet, was waiting outside her small, run-down apartment building at 8:45 a.m. The driver, Luca, the same man from the restaurant, simply opened the back door. It was not a request. Sarah, who had been awake all night, clutched her worn coat and got in. She had no choice. You didn't say no to Matteo Valenti and expect to stay in the city, or perhaps on the planet. Her entire life for the past 2 years had been about avoiding men like him, and in one foolish, compassionate moment, she had walked directly into the wolf's den. The Valenti estate wasn't a house, it was a fortress. Set on a private, wooded hill overlooking the city, It was surrounded by a 10-foot-high stone wall topped with wrought iron. The gates opened with a silent, imposing swing, and they drove for another full minute up a pristine, tree-lined drive. The house itself was a sprawling, classical villa of pale stone and dark, shuttered windows. It was beautiful, but it had no warmth. It was a monument to power and, Sarah thought, to grief. Luca led her through a cavernous, marble-floored foyer, her worn-out flats squeaking pitifully, and into a study. The room was dark, panelled in the same mahogany as the restaurant. One wall was a solid pane of glass overlooking a sombre, manicured garden. Matteo Valenti stood in front of it, staring out. He didn't turn around. "Leave us, Luca." The door clicked shut, the sound unnervingly final. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. "You're a hard woman to find, Serafina Rossi," Matteo said, his voice a low rumble. "No family. No social media. You've paid for everything in cash for the last 2 years. You've had 5 different addresses. You work at a restaurant you know is my territory. You're either stupid or you're running." Sarah's blood ran cold. He knew. He knew she was a ghost. I like my privacy, sir," she stammered. He turned, and the full force of his presence hit her. In the restaurant, he was a customer. Here, he was a king. Privacy is a luxury for those with nothing to hide. What are you hiding from? She swallowed. An ex-boyfriend. He was possessive. I needed a fresh start. It was a thin lie, but it was believable. Matteo studied her, his gaze stripping her bare. He didn't believe her. Not entirely. But he let it go. He had other priorities. "I saw what you did last night," he said, walking to his massive desk. "My son. The psychologists, the therapists. They are useless. They come here. They coo at him. They try to diagnose him. They treat him like he's a puzzle." "He's not a puzzle," Sarah said, her voice quiet but firm. "He's a child who lost his mother." Matteo's eyes snapped to hers. "And you know about that." "I know what it looks like," she said, her hand unconsciously moving to her pocket, where her locket was. To be left behind. An understanding passed between them, a dark, shared knowledge of loss. "I'm offering you a job," Matteo said, his voice all business again. "I'll pay you 5 times what you make at Il Corvo, a week, in cash." The amount was staggering. It was life-changing. "A job doing what?" "You'll be Leo's nanny." Sarah's heart sank. "Mr. Valenti, I'm not a nanny. I'm a waitress. I have no qualifications. What you saw last night was... it was just a moment." "I don't care about your qualifications," he said, stepping closer. He was tall, and he smelled of expensive cologne and something metallic, like power. "I care about results. For the first time in 6 months, my son slept through the night. This morning, he didn't fight his housekeeper. He's sitting in the kitchen, waiting. He asked for the locket lady." Sarah's breath caught. He asked?" "He pointed," Matteo corrected, "but the intent was clear. He wants you." Sarah was torn. This was a cage, a beautiful, gilded cage, but a cage nonetheless, and it was owned by the most dangerous man she'd ever met. Her plan was to stay invisible, save money, and get out of the country. This was the opposite of invisible. "I can't," she said, shaking her head. "I'm sorry, Mr. Valenti. I can't. I'm not what you're looking for." She turned to leave. "You're right." His voice stopped her again. She turned back. He was looking at her, but his eyes were distant, focused on a pain she couldn't see. "You're not what I'm looking for." He motioned to a chair. "Sit." She sat. He remained standing, looming over her. "When my wife, Maria, died," he said, his voice flat, devoid of emotion, "she took the light in this house with her. But she left. An echo. And my son is chasing it. He's killing himself, Sarah. He doesn't eat. He doesn't sleep. He's fading. The doctors say he has profound grief. They say he needs closure. He leaned down, placing his hands on the arms of her chair, trapping her. His face was inches from hers. I don't give a damn about closure, he whispered, his voice intense. I care about survival. My son is dying, and you, for some reason, are the only thing that has pulled him back from the edge. He stood up straight, his gaze fixed on her. And then he said the words that had haunted her since the night before. He's not just crying, Sarah. He's desperate. He needs a mother. Sarah shot to her feet. And you think I can be that? You think you can just buy one? I told you, I'm just a waitress. I can't be a mother to your son. I'm not asking you to be his mother, Matteo roared, his control finally snapping. The power in the room seemed to dim. His mother is dead. He took a ragged breath, visibly reining in his temper. I am asking you to fill a role, to be a presence, to stop him from needing a ghost. He ran a hand through his dark hair. I am a powerful man, Ms. Rossi. I can buy cities. I can end bloodlines. But I cannot. His voice broke, just for a fraction of a second. I cannot make my own son want to live. The door to the study creaked open. Leo stood there, in his pajamas, clutching his wooden wolf. He looked at his father, then at Sarah. He walked past the desk, past his towering, terrifying father, and stood in front of Sarah. He looked up at her, his eyes, the same piercing grey as Matteo's, wide and searching. Then he held up the wooden wolf, an offering. Sarah's resolve crumbled. The lie she'd been living, the fear she'd been running from, it all paled in comparison to the raw, naked need in this child's eyes. She knelt, just as she had in the restaurant. She didn't take the wolf. Instead, she gently touched the toy's carved ear. He's wonderful, Leo, she said. Leo's tiny hand, still holding the wolf, moved to cover hers. His skin was warm. Sarah looked up at Matteo, her eyes shining with unshed tears. The cage was still a cage, but the prisoner needed her. I'll stay, she whispered. As his nanny, that's all. As his nanny. Matteo Valenti let out a breath he looked like he'd been holding for 6 months. He nodded once, his face a mask of iron control once more. Good, he said. Luca will show you to your room. You'll move in today. The Valenti compound became Sarah's new world. It was a life of surreal, suffocating luxury. Her room was a full suite of rooms larger than her entire apartment, with a balcony overlooking the city. She had a clothing allowance, meals prepared by a private chef, and the silent, watchful protection of the Valenti staff. She was also never, ever alone. Luca or Nino, or another stony-faced guard, was always near. But for the first time in 2 years, the constant, gnawing fear in her stomach began to recede. The fear of her past, of being found, was replaced by a more immediate, tangible purpose. Leo. The first week was a silent negotiation. Leo wouldn't speak, but he would act. He'd take her hand and lead her to the garden. He'd sit and watch her as she read children's books aloud, his expression unreadable. Sarah didn't push. She didn't ask questions. She just existed. She sat with him on the floor of his massive, untouched playroom and helped him build towers. She ate her meals with him in the kitchen, not in the cavernous dining room. She learned from the housekeeper, a kind older woman named Sophia, that Leo loved lemon cookies, but hated the color green. And slowly, a sliver of the boy behind the grief began to emerge. One afternoon, she was drawing, sketching the garden from the balcony. Leo watched her. She offered him the pad. He shook his head. She shrugged and kept drawing. A few minutes later, she felt a tug on her sleeve. He was holding a crayon. He didn't draw on her pad, but on a napkin. He drew two figures. One was very small. One was taller, with scribbled brown hair, holding a locket. Sarah's heart ached. "Is that us?" Leo nodded. Then, in a voice that was hoarse from disuse, so quiet she almost missed it, he whispered one word. "Sarah." She froze. He'd spoken. He'd said her name. She beamed, a real, unguarded smile. "That's right, Leo. That's me." Matteo, who had been watching from the doorway, felt a strange, unfamiliar tightening in his chest. He heard the word. He saw the smile. He'd been so focused on his son's survival, he hadn't realized how much he'd missed the sound of life in this house. But Sarah's growing influence did not go unnoticed, and it was not universally welcomed. Matteo Valenti's organization was not a one-man show. His consigliere, his right hand, was Marco Bianchi. Marco was shrewd, ambitious, and utterly pragmatic. He saw the world in ledgers and power plays, and he saw Serafina Rossi as a dangerous variable. Worse, Marco had a sister. Bianca Bianchi was the opposite of Sarah. She was a creature of ice and fire, devastatingly beautiful, impeccably dressed, and openly, desperately in pursuit of Matteo. It had been the understanding in the organization that, after a respectable period of mourning, Matteo would marry Bianca, cementing the Bianchi family's loyalty and power. Sarah's presence was a threat to that. Bianca arrived at the compound unannounced one afternoon, ostensibly for tea, to find Sarah and Leo in the garden, planting flowers. "Well, well," Bianca's voice, a syrupy drawl, cut through the peaceful afternoon. She was draped in white linen, a stark angelic contrast to Sarah, who was covered in dirt. "The help is playing in the mud. How charming." Sarah stood, brushing dirt from her jeans. "Hello, I'm Sarah, Leo's nanny." "Oh, I know what you are," Bianca said, her smile not reaching her cold blue eyes. She ignored Sarah and crouched down to Leo. "Leo Tesoro, look what I brought you." She produced a new, shiny, plastic toy wolf. "You can throw that old dirty one away now." Leo recoiled, clutching his worn wooden wolf to his chest. He looked at Sarah, his eyes wide with fear. "That's very kind of you," Sarah said, stepping between them. "But his babbo gave him that one. It's his favorite." Bianca's smile tightened. "I'm sure Matteo would want his son to have the best, not some splintered old thing." She reached for the wooden wolf. "Give it here, child." "No!" Leo's voice was a sudden, sharp cry. He pulled back, and in the process, stumbled. Bianca, annoyed, snatched at the toy. "Don't be a baby!" The toy flew from Leo's hand, hit the stone pathway, and broke. The head snapped clean off. Time stopped. Leo's face crumpled. A wail of pure, unadulterated anguish tore from his throat, a sound Sarah hadn't heard since the restaurant. "Oh, for heaven's sake!" Bianca snapped, standing up, disgusted. "It's just a toy." "Get out!" Sarah said. Her voice was not loud. It was low, and it was shaking with a rage that surprised even her. Bianca laughed. "Excuse me? Who do you think you—" "I said, get out." Sarah advanced on her, her eyes blazing. "He is a child, a grieving child, and you just broke the last thing he has of his father's. What is wrong with you?" Bianca, incensed at being challenged by a servant, raised her hand, her nails glinting. "You forget your place, you little—" She swung, aiming to slap Sarah across the face. Sarah's hand shot up and caught Bianca's wrist in a steel grip. The garden went silent, save for Leo's heart-breaking sobs. Sarah's knuckles were white. Bianca's eyes were wide with shock. "My place," Sarah said, her voice dangerously quiet, "is with him. And you will never touch him or me again." "What?" a deep voice cut through the tableau. "Is going on here?" Matteo Valenti stood on the patio, flanked by Marco Bianchi. His face was thunder. Bianca immediately burst into tears. "Matteo, thank God! This creature! She attacked me, and she upset Leo!" Sarah didn't let go of Bianca's wrist. She didn't look at Matteo. She kept her eyes locked on Bianca. "She's lying," Sarah said, her voice clear. "She broke Leo's toy, on purpose. Then she tried to hit me." Marco Bianchi stepped forward. "Matteo, this is absurd. My sister would never— This girl is a liar, a common waitress trying to— She's not lying." Everyone turned. Leo had stopped crying. He was standing, shaking, his small fists clenched. He pointed a tiny, accusing finger at Bianca. "Bad," he said. "Bad lady." Matteo's gaze went from Leo to Bianca's wrist still in Sarah's grip, to the broken wolf on the path. The pieces clicked into place. His voice was terrifyingly calm. "Bianca, get out of my house." "Matteo!" she gasped, horrified. "You're taking her side?" "I am taking my son's side," he said. "Marco, take your sister home, now." Marco's face was a mask of cold fury. He despised this, the humiliation. He grabbed his sister's arm. "Come, Bianca, we are leaving." Bianca ripped her arm from his grasp and stalked away, her white linen dress swishing. The garden was quiet again. Sarah finally let her hand drop, her entire body trembling. She knelt and picked up the two pieces of the broken wolf. Her shoulders sagged. Matteo walked over. He didn't look at her. He looked at his son. He crouched down. "She's gone, Leo. She won't be back." Leo just looked at the broken toy in Sarah's hand. Sarah looked at Matteo. "I can fix it," she whispered. "I have wood glue. I can fix it." Matteo Valenti looked at this woman, covered in dirt, trembling but defiant, who had just faced down Bianca Bianchi, and won. He watched as she gently took Leo's hand, placed the two broken pieces in it, and closed his small fingers around them. "We'll fix it together," she promised the boy. Matteo stood, his heart doing that strange, tight-chested thing again. He had brought her here to be a nanny, to be a shield for his son. He hadn't anticipated that she would become a warrior, and he hadn't anticipated that in doing so she had just made a mortal enemy of his most trusted advisor. The incident in the garden changed the atmosphere in the house. Sarah was no longer just the nanny. To the staff, she was the woman who had defied Bianca Bianchi and survived. To Leo, she was a protector. And to Matteo, she was becoming a complication he hadn't foreseen. That evening, after Sarah and Leo had painstakingly glued the wolf back together and Leo was asleep, Sarah found Matteo in his study, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. "He's asleep," she said from the doorway. "Come in," he said, not turning. "Close the door." She did, stepping onto the plush carpet. "She will never bother you again," he said. "It wasn't me I was worried about," Sarah said. He turned, swirling the liquid in his glass. "You took a great risk today. Bianca is volatile." "She's a bully," Sarah said simply. "Bullies only have the power you give them." He gave a short, harsh laugh. "You have no idea what she is, what her brother is." He paused, studying her. "You're not afraid of me, are you?" "Yes," Sarah said honestly. "I am. But I'm more afraid of what happens to a child who doesn't have anyone to stand up for him." A long silence stretched between them. He gestured to the glass in his hand. "Drink?" "No, thank you." "Good." He took a sip. "Today, what you did for my son. Thank you." It was the first time he had shown her genuine, uncalculated gratitude. It disarmed her. He's a good boy. He just misses his mum. Matteo's face darkened. We all do. He finished his drink. Get some rest, Sarah. You've earned it. As she walked out, she felt his eyes on her. The line between employer and employee, between master and servant, was beginning to blur. But while Sarah had been building a bridge to the Valentis, Marco Bianchi had been sharpening a knife. He was humiliated. His sister was a wreck. His own position had been challenged, and it was all because of a waitress. Marco was a man who believed in facts, in leverage, and the facts about Serafina Rossi didn't add up. The thin, abusive ex-boyfriend story was a start. He'd had his tech team scouring public records, credit reports, anything. Serafina Rossi had been born 26 years ago, but she had no digital footprint before 2 years ago. No student loans, no credit cards, no social media, no family. She had paid for a new driver's license, in cash, 2 years and 3 months ago. She wasn't a person. She was a cover. He spent 2 days, sleepless, digging. He ran her photo through facial recognition databases, cross-referencing with old news articles, society pages, anything. He got a hit. It wasn't a strong match. It was a grainy photo from a society gala, 4 years old, a charity ball. In the background, a young woman with a different haircut, a different smile, stood next to a man. Marco zoomed in on the man. His blood ran cold. Thomas Petrocelli. Thomas Petrocelli, the chief accountant and consigliere for the Falcone family, the Valenti's most bitter, most hated rivals. The man who, 2 years ago, had allegedly tried to turn state's evidence, taking his ledger books with him. The man who had been disappeared by the Falcones before he could testify, his entire life scrubbed from existence. Marco looked back at the girl, younger, happier, but the eyes were the same defiant, sad eyes as the waitress in Matteo's house. My God, Marco whispered. He'd found a ghost. He didn't call. He drove to the estate, bursting into Matteo's study without knocking. We have a problem, Marco said, his voice grim. Matteo looked up from his desk, annoyed. I'm busy. You're not busy enough for this. Marco threw a tablet onto the desk. On the screen was the grainy photo. What is this? Matteo asked. A society page? Look at the girl, Marco hissed. Look at her. Matteo looked. He frowned. It looks a little like Sarah. So what? Now look at the man beside her, Marco said, his voice trembling with a mixture of rage and triumph. Do you know who that is? Matteo squinted, and then recognition dawned, a slow, cold horror. Petrocelli. Thomas Petrocelli, Marco confirmed. The Falcone's consigliere, the snake who almost brought your father down. The rat Lorenzo Falcone supposedly gutted. Matteo stood up, his chair scraping loudly. What are you saying, Marco? I'm saying, the woman sleeping under your roof, the woman holding your son's hand, is not Serafina Rossi. Marco swiped to another screen, a digital file. Her name is Anna Petrocelli. She's the traitor's daughter, and she is a Falcone spy. The silence in the room was absolute. Matteo stared at the image, at the face of the smiling girl, and saw only the face of the waitress who had charmed his son. She's been playing you, Marco said, pressing his advantage. Playing all of us. She comforts your son. She stands up to my sister. She worms her way in. How better to destroy the Valenti family than from the inside? Using your own son against you. Matteo's face was pale. The blood had drained from it. He thought of her lies about her past, her privacy, her abusive ex. It all clicked. She has her father's ledgers. Marco spat. She must. She's here to finish what he started, to destroy us." Matteo said nothing. He walked to the window, staring out at the garden where, just yesterday, he had watched her with his son. The tenderness he'd felt was replaced by a cold, black, volcanic rage. He had been played. His son had been used. He pressed the intercom on his desk. "Luca." "Yes, Don Valenti." "Find Serafina. Bring her to my study. Now. And tell Nino to guard my son's room. She is not to go near him." He turned back to Marco, his eyes no longer the cold grey of the sea, but the flat, dead black of a shark's. "You will not speak of this to anyone," he commanded. "Matteo, what are you going to do?" Marco asked, a predatory gleam in his eye. "We should take her to the warehouse. We end this. Tonight." "No," Matteo said, his voice a low growl. "First, she's going to tell me the truth. And then I'm going to make her wish she was never born." The door to the study opened. Sarah stepped in, a small, questioning smile on her face. "Mr. Valenti? You wanted to see me?" Her smile died when she saw his expression, and Marco Bianchi, standing by the desk like an executioner. "Close the door, Anna," Matteo said. The name hit her like a physical blow. She stumbled, her hand flying to her throat, to the locket hidden under her shirt. I don't know who you're talking about." "Don't!" he roared, slamming his fist on the desk. "Don't you dare lie to me again!" He strode across the room and grabbed her arm, his fingers biting into her skin like a vice. He dragged her to the desk and spun the tablet around. "Anna Petrocelli!" he snarled, jabbing a finger at the photo. "Daughter of Thomas Petrocelli, the Falcone family's snake. You come into my house, you put your hands on my son, you lie to my face." Tears streamed down Anna's face. It was over. The life she'd tried to build, the safety she'd almost felt, was gone. "Is it true?" he demanded, shaking her. "Are you a spy? Were you sent here by Lorenzo Falcone to finish what your father started?" "No," she cried, the truth finally tearing out of her. "No, I'm not a spy." "Liar!" Marco spat. "She's lying, Matteo. She has the ledgers. She's here to destroy us." "Is that what you think?" Anna ripped her arm from Matteo's grasp, her fear momentarily replaced by a lifetime of repressed anger. "You think I'm a spy? My father wasn't a traitor. He wasn't trying to destroy your father. He was trying to get out. He was trying to protect me." The raw conviction in her voice stopped both men cold. "Lorenzo Falcone," she said, the name like acid on her tongue. "He's a monster. My father worked for him. Yes. He cooked his books. Yes. But he wanted a different life for me. He was saving money, creating an exit. He was going to take the ledgers not to the feds, but as insurance, to keep us safe once we were gone." She was sobbing now, the story pouring out of her. "But someone tipped Falcone off. They came to our house. I was hiding, in the pantry, like he told me to, when bad men came. I heard them kill him. I heard them," she choked. "And they were looking for me. And for the ledgers." She looked at Matteo, her eyes pleading. "I ran. I've been running for 2 years. I changed my name. I cut my hair. I worked in kitchens, in bars, and finally, here. I came to Il Corvo because it was your territory. I thought Falcone would never look for me in the one place I should be most afraid of. I've been hiding from the Falcones, Mr. Valenti, not spying for them." The study was silent. Marco looked skeptical. "A convenient story." "Is it?" Anna said, her voice raw. "Would a spy throw herself in front of your sister to protect a little boy? Would a spy have this?" She pulled the locket from her shirt. She clicked it open. Inside was not a picture. It was a tiny, folded piece of paper. A key. a key to a storage locker. "This is all I have left of him," she whispered. "This, and a name he made me memorize. A locker. I don't even know what's in it. I was too afraid to go. I was just trying to survive." Matteo stared at the key. He looked at her tear-streaked face. He saw her, really saw her, for the first time. Not just a nanny, not just a spy, but a woman, alone, trapped between two warring empires. A woman just like him, a survivor of a war she didn't start. His rage was gone, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. "She's telling the truth," Matteo said, his voice flat. "Matteo!" Marco was aghast. "You can't believe this. She's the daughter of our enemy." "She's the daughter of a dead man," Matteo corrected. "And she's the one person in the world the Falcones want. They don't just want her dead, Marco. They want what she knows. They want what's in that locker." He began to pace. The problem of Anna Petrocelli had just transformed. She was no longer a threat. She was an asset, a weapon. "She's a security risk, Matteo," Marco insisted, his voice low. "We can't keep her here. The Falcones find out she's here. They'll tear the city apart to get her. Kill her. It's the only way to be clean. It's business." "No," Matteo said. He stopped in front of Anna. She was still trembling, but she met his gaze. "He's right about one thing," Matteo said. "You're a ghost. You're a liability. The Falcones are looking for Anna Petrocelli. They'll find you eventually. And when they do," he leaned in, "they will hurt you. And they will hurt my son to get to you." "So what do you want me to do?" she whispered. "Run again." "There is nowhere to run," Matteo said. "Lorenzo Falcone's reach is long. There is only one way to protect you. One way to hide you from him forever." "How?" Matteo looked at her, his grey eyes calculating, cold and something else. Something she couldn't name. "You hide a ghost by making it real. You protect a liability by making it an untouchable asset." He straightened his tie. He was no longer a grieving father or an angry man. He was the Don. "You're right," he said, referencing their conversation from that morning. "Leo needs a mother. And I need a wife." Anna's blood turned to ice. "What? What did you say?" "Marco's solution is to kill you. It's clean. But it's a waste," Matteo said, as if discussing a stock purchase. "And it would destroy my son. I saw his face today. He spoke. For you." He offered his hand, not in comfort, but in finality. "My solution is a new bargain, a marriage, not of convenience, Anna, of survival. Marry me. Tomorrow." You're insane," she breathed. "I'm a pragmatist," he shot back. "Listen, as Serra Rossi, you are a target. As Anna Petrocelli, you are a dead woman. But as Anna Valenti, wife of the Don, you are untouchable. You will be a member of my family. You will have my name, and I will give you my protection. I will rain fire on Lorenzo Falcone, or anyone else, who dares to even speak your name." And in return?" she asked, her voice a shadow. Matteo's face softened, just for a moment. He glanced toward the door, in the direction of his son's room. "In return," he said, his voice dropping, "you will be what you've already become. You will be a mother to my son. You will bring life back into this house. You will give me your loyalty, and you will never, ever lie to me again." He stood there, his hand extended. It was a cage, a permanent, inescapable, gilded cage, but it was also the only sanctuary in the world. She looked at Marco, whose face was a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. He had lost. She looked at Matteo, a man of violence and contracts, offering her the one thing she craved, safety. And she thought of Leo, of his small hand in hers, of his first word. She was not Anna Petrocelli, the runaway. She was not Serafina Rossi, the waitress. She was, in that moment, Leo's protector. She put her shaking hand into Matteo's. "I will," she said. The wedding was as swift and cold as the bargain that sealed it. There was no white dress, no music. It took place the next day in Matteo's study, the same room where Anna's life had been torn apart and rebuilt. A city judge, his hands visibly shaking, performed the ceremony. The only witnesses were Marco, his face carved from ice, and Luca, impassive as ever. The only guest was Leo. He wore a small black suit, and he didn't understand what was happening, but he knew it was important. When the judge asked for the rings, Leo, who had been coached by Sarah, walked forward, holding a small velvet pillow. As Matteo took the simple platinum band and slid it onto Anna's finger, his hand was warm. He looked not at her, but at his son. "With this," he said, his voice a low vow, "I pledge my protection, to you and to our son." Anna's vow was just as simple. "I pledge my loyalty, to you and to Leo." When the judge pronounced them man and wife, Matteo did not kiss her. He simply nodded and then crouched down to Leo. "Sarah," he said, "is our family now. Leo. Her name is Anna Valenti. She's going to stay with us, always." Leo, who had been watching the ring on Anna's hand, simply smiled. He leaned in and, for the first time, gave Anna a kiss on the cheek. It was the only real, warm thing in the entire terrifying ordeal. The news hit the underworld like a grenade. Matteo Valenti marries Nanny. It was a scandal. It was a sign of weakness. To Bianca Bianchi it was a declaration of war. To Lorenzo Falcone it was a curiosity. Marco, furious but bound by loyalty, had put out the official story. The Don had been quietly courting the nanny, and for the sake of his son, had made it official. It was a love story. Lorenzo Falcone, a man who looked like a jovial grandfather and had the heart of a serpent, didn't buy it. He ran the name Serafina Rossi. He too found the paper-thin cover. But unlike Marco, he didn't have the photo to connect the dots. Not yet. But the marriage had an immediate and dangerous consequence. It enraged Marco. He saw Anna as a usurper, a snake who had tricked her way into the family. He began, in small, subtle ways, to undermine her. He and Bianca worked in concert. Bianca would, accidentally, let slip to other Mafia wives that the new donor was common, uneducated. Marco, meanwhile, would protect Anna by restricting her access. He'd forget to inform her of family dinners. He'd give her bad advice on how to manage the staff, designed to make her look foolish and weak. He tried to isolate her. It didn't work. Anna had spent 2 years being invisible. She knew how to watch, how to listen. She saw the whispers. She felt the cold shoulders. But she also wasn't Sarah anymore. The first test came at a formal Valenti family dinner. Bianca was there, oozing contempt. She watched as Anna, unused to the formal setting, nearly used the wrong fork. "In my family," Bianca said, her voice loud in a lull in the conversation, "we were taught which forks to use. But I suppose in a diner, you just use your hands." The table went silent. Matteo tensed. Anna put her fork down. She looked at Bianca, a calm, level gaze. "You're right, Bianca. I didn't grow up with this. I grew up with a father who taught me that the content of your character matters more than the quality of your silverware." She picked up her water glass. "He also taught me about numbers. For instance," she looked at Marco, "I've been reviewing the household accounts. It's fascinating. The catering budget for family dinners like this has increased 30% in the last 6 months, yet we're serving the same menu. That's a remarkable discrepancy." Marco's face went pale. Matteo, who had been watching, hiding a small smile, leaned in. "Is that so, mia cara?" "It is," Anna said, turning to her new husband. "I also noticed a significant consulting fee paid monthly to a company, BB Imports, that seems to have no function, no warehouse, and is registered to a P.O. box in your sister's name." Bianca gasped. Marco's eyes were murderous. Anna had just exposed them. She had, in one quiet statement, shown them all that she was not stupid, and she was not afraid. Matteo Valenti threw his head back and laughed, a real, deep, genuine laugh, the first one the family had heard in a year. "Well," he said, wiping his eye, "it seems my wife is not just a pretty face. She has her father's eye for numbers." He looked at Marco, his smile gone. "Fix it. And Marco, my wife will be co-signing all household and organizational expenditures from now on. She has," he put his hand on Anna's, "my full confidence." Anna had won the battle. She had established her power as Donna Valenti. But she had also just started a war. Across town, Lorenzo Falcone was growing impatient. The Waitress story still bothered him. He'd been digging into Thomas Petrocelli's life. He knew Petrocelli had a daughter. He'd seen blurry high school photos. Her name was Anna. He sent one of his men to Il Corvo Dorato to rough up the manager, Dimitri. "This Sarah Rossi," the thug said, "the one who married Valenti. What did she look like?" Dimitri, terrified, described her. Brown hair, sad eyes. Always wore this silver locket, a flower on it. The thug reported back to Falcone. Falcone remembered. He remembered that locket. He'd given it to Thomas Petrocelli's wife as a gift years ago, back when they were the family. He slammed his fist on his desk. "That bastardo!" Falcone hissed. "Matteo Valenti didn't just marry a waitress. He married Anna Petrocelli. She's alive, and she's with him." His mind raced. Why? To ally the families? No, Valenti had to know about her father. Then it hit him. The ledgers. The girl didn't have them. She was the key to them. "He's using her," Falcone whispered, a slow, cruel smile spreading. "He thinks he can use Petrocelli's daughter to get my ledgers." He made a call. "I want to sit down with Valenti. It's time we discussed his new acquisition." The war was no longer cold. It was about to begin. The sit-down at the Stockton Hotel was thick with tension. Lorenzo Falcone, smiling like a serpent, made his offer. "Give me the girl, Matteo. Her and the ledgers she has, and my shipping empire is yours." Before Matteo could refuse, Anna stepped forward, her gaze like ice. "He's offering you something that's already mine to take." She dangled her locket. "You think you're here to negotiate? You're here to surrender." Anna revealed her father's true genius. The locket's key didn't open a locker. It was a fail-safe. The real ledgers were digitized in a bank vault, with copies sent to the U.S. Attorney and the New York Times, set to be released upon her death or disappearance. "You can't kill me, Lorenzo," she said, her voice clear. "And you can't have my father's books. But I have yours." In a devastating blow, she also used her knowledge to expose Marco Bianchi's secret, treacherous deals with Falcone, sealing his fate with a single sentence. Broken, Falcone had no choice. Anna didn't trade. She commanded. He would publicly cede his businesses to the Valenti family as an apology and live out his days in humiliation. Back at the estate, the war was over. Matteo looked at his wife, not as a bargain, but with pure awe. "The contract is over, Anna," he said, taking her hands. "You're not here for my protection. You're my partner, my Donna, and the woman I love." He kissed her, sealing their new, true beginning. The next morning, the last wall of their gilded cage crumbled when Leo ran into the garden, laughing, and jumped into her arms. "Morning, Mama." And so the waitress who walked into the wolf's den didn't just survive. She became the queen of the pack. She proved that the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun or a name, but a mind that sees what others miss, and a heart that's brave enough to act. She turned a marriage of convenience into a partnership of power, and a silent, broken boy into a laughing son. They say in the Mafia, blood is everything. But Anna, Valenti proved that sometimes the family you choose is the one that gives you the most power of all. What did you think of Anna's ultimate checkmate? Was Matteo's bargain fair, or was it just another cage? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you loved this story of drama, danger, and karmic justice, be sure to hit that like button, share this video with a friend who loves a good twist, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel so you never miss another story.